Welcome to LauraBaggett.com. My name is Laura Baggett, and my goal is to help you become the hero in your homeschool by giving you the tools, confidence, and motivation for teaching math to your children. Today, we're going to talk about how to divide fractions. Now, toward the end, we're going to get to the usual way of flipping and multiplying and all of that. But before we get that far, I want us to see how conceptually this works, what's going on behind the scenes. So, for example, if we wanted to do 6 divided by 2, we could think of that in a couple different ways. For one, we could think of it as just 6 divided into 2 equal groups. So if we had 6 objects, we divide those into 2 equal groups, then we have 3 in each group. So we know that 6 divided by 2 is equal to 3. Pretty straightforward. Another way we could think of this is how many groups of 2 are in 6, or how many 2's are in 6. Now this is often what we would ask or tell our children to ask themselves if we were going to set it up like this. 6 divided by 2, we'll usually say, okay, how many times does 2 go into 6? 3 2's go into 6, 3 times 2 is 6, and so forth. And so we use that method with long division, but we can use that same sort of logic with fractions and when we're dividing with fractions. So if we had 6 divided by 1/2, now notice this is not the same thing as 6 divided in half. This is 6 divided by 1/2. So we're asking ourselves, how many halves are in 6? All right, well, if we have 6 objects, how many halves are in there? Well, if we divide each of these objects in half, then we have 1, 2 halves per object. So we're going to end up with 12 total halves. So the answer, how many halves are in 6? Well, there are 12 halves in 6. So we would expect that 6 divided by 1/2 is equal to 12. Let's look at 1/2 divided by 1/6. Again, we can ask how many sixths are in a half. Well, let's take our whole circle here and look at a half. Okay, so each side would represent 1/2. So let's look at this half over here. Now I want to know how many sixths will fit into that. Well, let's divide the whole thing into sixths. So we've got it into halves already. So if we divide this a little bit further, then each of these pieces and so forth all the way around, these all represent 1/6 of the whole. So how many of those fit into our half? Well, 1, 2, 3 of them fit in. So how many sixths are in 1/2? 3. So 1/2 divided by 1/6 is equal to 3. Let's switch that around and do 1/6 divided by 1/2. How many halves are in 1/6? Well, again, let's start out with the whole. Let's divide this into sixths so we see what our 1/6 is that we're dealing with to begin with. So those should be equal slices, but if you'll bear with me there on my drawing. So we're talking about this part represents 1/6. Well, how many halves are in there? Well, the half is going to be all of this whole side of the pie or the pizza or whatever. So how much of that half is in 1/6? Well, if you look at it, there are 3/6 slices in that half. So 1/3 of this whole half. Remember, the half is the green part there. So a third of the green part is in that original slice of 1/6. So how many halves are in 1/6? Well, a third of a half will go into 1/6. That one's a little trickier, but again, 1/6 is the blue shaded in part, half of it is the green shaded in part, a third of the green part fits into the blue shaded part. So 1/3 of a half will fit into 1/6. Now, how does that relate to the way we usually look at things? So if we have 6 divided by 1/2, we can write this as 6 over 1 divided by 1/2. And we know that we can solve this as 6 divided by 1 times 2 over 1. We always invert or flip the second one and multiply. I'm going to cover in another video why we flip and then multiply. But for this video, we're just talking about how to do it. And then if you watched my previous video on how to multiply fractions, then we know that we multiply across the numerator, the top part, multiply the denominators together. So we have 6 times 2 gives me 12, and 1 times 1 gives me 1, and I've kind of run out of room over here. But 12 divided by 1 is going to be equal to 12. And that's what we got earlier when we were looking at this. We said that 6 divided by 1/2 should be equal to 12. Let's look at 1/2 divided by 1/6. Well, again, we're going to change this to multiplication, and sometimes you'll see me use the dot, but we can use the X. And then we're going to invert the second number, flip it over. So 1 over 6 becomes 6 over 1. We multiply those fractions together. 1 times 6 is 6. 2 times 1 is equal to 2. And then we can reduce that fraction down to its lowest terms. And if you're not sure how to do that, make sure you watch the video about simplifying fractions. So 6 divided by 2 is going to reduce to 3. Sure enough, that's what we saw over here, that there were 3 sixths, 3 1/6 in 1/2. So 1/2 divided by 1/6 is equal to 3. Our final one, we have 1/6 divided by 1/2. So we can simplify that as 1/6 times 2 over 1. 1 times 2, multiplying the numerators together, is 2. 6 times 1 in the denominator is going to be 6. And then again, by reducing that to simplest terms, we have 1 divided by 3, or 1/3, which is the answer we got when we were doing this conceptually or with a picture. So I hope that helps you to understand maybe some of the reasoning behind how we divide fractions by changing them into multiplication. And I do hope you'll check out the other videos that I have posted about multiplying fractions if you're unsure about that part, and also about how to simplify fractions. If you have any questions, please be sure and email me. You can contact me at the website that you see on the site listed right up here. There is a contact form at the top of that site. Please let me know if you have any additional questions, and I'll be sure to answer those and perhaps even turn them into a brand new video. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you found this video to be helpful and that it helps you to conquer your math anxiety and make you better prepared to teach your